Freedom. My name's Emily, and
I'm Naomi.
And so today we'll be talking a little bit about food freedom and what that means, and how we can do things to strive to get more towards food freedom. And just to say a little bit of some guidelines is that this is a public platform. We post this on YouTube and Facebook, so we really want you to have some interaction, give us a few comments and we can answer them, but just to be mindful that it is on a public platform. And so we'll get started. So my lived experience in food freedom is that when I was 16, I was diagnosed with anorexia, and for 7 or 8 years, that took complete control over my life. In every aspect of my day-to-day well-being, I was just completely controlled by my fear of food and my fear of putting on weight. And this kind of stemmed from serious lack of self-esteem, confidence, and just wanting my life to be in control. And because my life was so out of control, because of traumas and because of life circumstances, being a child and things like that, I felt the need to have to control something. So I controlled what I put in my mouth, and eventually I lost all control over it. I didn't know whether I was coming and going. I hated eating around people, and it took control over me, and I was just so poorly. And I then started to get fed up of suffering all the time. I started to get fed up of losing my teenage years, losing my my 20s, and decided enough was enough, and that I was going to make little steps to come out of that comfort zone and to repair my relationship with food and my body and me, because I had done a lot of things to myself that were disrespectful, that were harmful, all of those things. So I tried to repair that slowly, and now I'm in a place where the wellest I remember being ever, and I think I have relative food freedom, and it feels much empowering to live a life like that, instead of living a life controlled by what I put in my mouth.
It's really amazing. Well done, Em. So my sort of journey with food freedom is kind of a little bit different, I suppose. As in high school, I was really quite thin. I was sort of like a size sort of maybe like 0 to 6. So I was really, really thin. And I used to get called a lot of names at high school for being thin. I used to get called Skeletor and things like that. I was really quite tall as well. I was like the tallest girl in all of my years. And I had ginger hair as well, I had red hair. I used to have braces and things, so I had a wide variety of things that people could pick on. But the main one was my weight. And I think as I got older, I started developing sort of like this sort of, if I'm too skinny, then I'm not loved. And I wanted, I'm not attractive. I think when you get told something over and over again, whether that's to do with being too big or too small or having something that's slightly different, then, and you're constantly told that that's a negative thing, and picked on because of that, then you start to think that you need to be the opposite of that, otherwise you're not wanted and you're not loved. Inevitably, that's all what we're trying to be, isn't it? And as humans, is loved and liked. So we become quite controlled. I think I definitely did over my weight. And then I had my first child when I was really young as well. So that brought on a wide range of emotions for me. So my body was completely different again. So constantly changing all the time was how my body was, and it was just difficult to get my head around that. Which inevitably led to toxic sort of like, relationships with food, because that inevitably controlled what my body looked like. That's what it kind of looked like for me.
Yeah, and we were talking just before about, like, similar to what you said, if you're constantly being told that your body isn't good enough, and the way you look isn't good enough, you do everything in your power to change that.
To do the opposite.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it can be really difficult. And I think a lot of people, because of today's society with having access to Instagram, Facebook, so many pictures, TV programs, that beauty standard is just drilled into us all the time.
It's unrealistic though, isn't it? So much of it is photoshopped and things like that, and it's unrealistic. And a lot of us are thinking that we need to be like that, which then can inevitably, again, lead to a toxic health relationship with food.
Because at the end of the day, food is what we identify as being the cause of our problems in terms of our body, but it's not necessarily the food we eat. There's a whole host of other reasons that are out of our control, so we control what we can control.
I think it's the guilt around it as well. Like once you've eaten, say like you were having a relationship with food where you were eating too much. Once you've eaten too much, then you will feel instantly guilty. I know that I used to sort of hide all the wrappers and things and just to get it out of the way as soon as I'd eaten, because I just hated knowing that that had happened, and the guilt would be so much bigger if the wrapper was still there. And even if I just been the opposite as well. If I'd been dieting loads and loads and loads and I'd eaten a bar of chocolate or even just like a square of chocolate, the thoughts that would go around in my head for hours after would just be awful. So the guilt around it all as well, and the shame and things that you're feeling, it can be really damaging.
Yeah, definitely. So the first kind of we have, we'll look at what is food freedom. And food freedom is basically feeling like you can eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and feeling positive about it, or feeling neutral about it at least, and not having the things like Naomi was saying, the guilt, the shame, the anxiety, the regret, the constant rumination of how you failed, or you've let yourself down, or you've let other people down, or people aren't going to love you, and that you can eat what you want when you want it, and you can leave it when you don't want it. I think something that my journey kind of went from not eating anything to finding out, and it was actually The Crown. I remember watching The Crown with Princess Diana and noticing that actually if you could whatever I want and then purge it, and the guilt would go. So it then turned into something much more toxic than
it was originally.
It found new ways to rear its head and to have control over me.
Evolved in a way.
And only when I started to have food freedom a little bit, I was like, it's okay that I want to eat what I want to eat. It doesn't mean I don't have to follow all the rules that I've created for myself, because they're not backed by science, they're backed by anxiety, and that doesn't mean that it is a reality for me.
And I think it's a lot of it's to do with the feeling of being unwanted and unloved. And I think that's what it stems from, is if we are a certain way, we're going to be loved more. We're going to be loved more. We're going to be more wanted if we're a certain way. Whereas what we do need with this food freedom is essentially our own freedom as well. It's just to be ourselves, and relax with that, and also be, proud of that and be happy with that. And sort of let go of that control and have freedom to be who we are, and not feel so controlled by, all of the thoughts in our heads, the negative self-talk.
And how you were saying about we all want to be loved, a big part of having food freedom is loving yourself despite your food.
Definitely.
And loving yourself because of it, and loving yourself as a part of that, because eating is a big part of our lives. We do continue to have a society where most of our socialization is surrounded by meals or drinks or anything like that. So it is a big part, and we need to make that comfortable. So what are the signs that you might feel you have a negative relationship with food? So like we've said before, constantly thinking about food, and not being able to focus on other things, or constantly analysing everything that you're putting in your body, constantly analysing what other people are putting in your body. Lots of people watch other people eat because they feel they get it vicariously, enjoy. Guilty, avoiding certain foods, having a really long list, or not maybe a super long list, but just a list of foods that you must not eat. And that's not backed because you've got intolerances, allergies. It's pure anxiety because you have a fear of that food, or that food invokes serious anxiety. And having extreme or prolonged dieting, there's a lot of research that says that dieting is just catastrophic to your metabolism, to your self-esteem, all of those things. And the thing is with dieting, diets have been designed to fail. They the beauty in the fitness industry wants you to fail so that you keep coming back and doing more, and keeps that unrealistic expectations. Say, oh, you can lose 2 stone in a week. That's not healthy. And that's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be, you're not going to be able to have it for a long
It's
time.
unrealistic, isn't it?
Yeah. Katie said, how do you overcome a fear of eating in cafes and restaurants? And this is a really good question. I think a lot of people have that fear of kind of being watched by others, or even just the overstimulate. Like being in a cafe or a restaurant can be quite overstimulating. If you're there on a weekday, or and it's quieter, maybe you might feel a little bit more at ease because there's less people around. But if you're there on a weekend or in the summer holidays or something, there is a lot of hustle and bustle, which can be overstimulating. And when you're already nervous about eating in front of people, that can make your anxiety worse. And I think the way that I overcome it, and I think that this will be really important when you're going to restaurants with the calories on the meals now, is that I let someone else tell me what was on the menu, and then I would pick, but I wouldn't look at the menu, and to kind of ease yourself into it. So don't expect yourself to just go to a cafe or a restaurant and say, I'm going to have a 3-course meal and I'm going to love it, because you probably won't. And that's then going to feel like you've failed, or you've let yourself down, you've disappointed yourself, and then you won't want to do it again.
I think something that helps with me is like sort of when I was sort of struggling with that sort of thing, especially after I had my children, I going out in public, I'd get picky things. There's things like that was easy to kind of just eat, and it would be, I knew I could just eat as much as I wanted, and I didn't have to eat the whole thing. So just getting something like a sharing plate or something, or just something small that you can kind of pick at, that took away the kind of like the expectation to eat the whole meal. And also I could just sort of like eat little bits, and it just be kind of like without a knife and fork, and it kind of felt less intrusive, if you know what I mean.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's sort of,
it's really important to take those little steps, and to even look at the menu before you go and think, oh, do I want to come to this restaurant? Is there anything that I really want to eat, or am I just going to be forcing myself to eat that because that's on the menu?
I think going with somebody that's really, really supportive as well is going to be really helpful. So if you do go, and maybe not in a group of people, maybe just you and one other person that knows and understands what you're going, can be helpful, because they'll be able to support you through that as well. And also maybe sort of limiting it to a time and just saying maybe we'll just stay for half an hour. So that sort of gradual exposure is going to really help you to just sort of wean yourself into that sort of environment again.
Definitely.
And feel comfortable to do that again.
Definitely easing yourself into it, and not just kind of flooding yourself with all of these other anxieties that you might be facing. And yes, it is difficult, and it has to be slow, and it has to be when you're ready, and it has to be a comfortable situation for you. But it is possible. I never ever thought that I'd be able to go out with a group of friends and eat ever, and now it's something that I really enjoy. So yeah, I think a lot of it is about your confidence as a person going out for dinner, and the food as well. And that can be difficult to wrap your head around and then make small changes, but it is possible.
It's a lot of things to think about, isn't there?
And so some other signs are eating in secret and binge eating. So not not letting yourself listen to your hunger signals. So eating more than your body can take can be really distressing, not only for you but also for your body, like, biologically. And it's really important to get to that food freedom, is that you can leave it when you've finished. And something someone told me once was, did your parents ever tell you that you had to finish your plate no matter what, if you were full, if you didn't like it? And I was like, yeah, that's just a normal thing. Like, your parents just want you to have a well-balanced diet. And they said that's actually taught you to not listen to your hunger signals, not listening to your fullness signals, especially because you have to eat it. And now, even today, I feel like if I leave food, I'm going to be like in trouble almost. So yeah, it's definitely something that's going to be difficult to break, but knowing that it's okay to leave food and that you can come back to it and that it's not going anywhere, and you're in control of that.
I think something really important is to remember, I think with all of our workshops, especially with this one as well, is that habits are breakable. Those habits that we've set in, that we think are concreted enough into our lives, they are able to be adapted, and they are changeable. And I think just having the awareness of that we are able to change these habits if they're negative and they're toxic towards us. Just being aware that we are able to change that, and hopefully by coming to these workshops and things like that, learning how to change them is hopefully going to be really, really helpful. So just the awareness to know that these habits aren't stuck and they're not ingrained. And even, yourself, Emily, you are like proof of that, that those habits are breakable and changeable. It does take a lot of effort, but with the right help and support, they are changeable, and it's important to be aware of that, I think.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about Ethiopia, and I've learned a lot, and then you put a bit as well, is that it's not just one issue. So say you've got anxiety on food, maybe to the anxiety workshop, but also confidence and self-esteem, and the inner critic, and the fear of getting well, and the effective communication. All of these things all play into it.
They all interlink together.
And some isolate it so much that it's just anxiety around food. And then that's what makes it difficult to overcome, because you kind of got tunnel vision, and you're neglecting all of these other things that have a key role.
I think sometimes if we just go straight in for food freedom, sometimes we're not ready for that because we haven't worked on confidence and self-esteem. We need to be looking at that, and that inner critic as well, that negative self-talk. We can work on those things first, or at the same time as, then we're ready to start changing those habits and feel confident to be able to do that. So you're right, it does all interlink together, doesn't it?
Definitely. And does food relate to our body image? Okay, it's not coming up. Here we go. How does food relate to our body image? And I guess we've touched on it a little bit before. And I know we were talking about it yesterday, about body changes, and I think a lot of us can kind of compare our bodies to when we were children, and how maybe we were smaller then, and for women wanting to be petite and tiny and fit into that.
Both of us were quite tall, weren't we, at high school? And I think that we tried to be smaller in other ways to sort of like counteract that. I think because a lot of like our friends when we were growing up, we've spoken about, were much shorter than us. So we didn't really wear high heels. We were kind of like trying to be smaller in other ways, but that also meant being smaller physically as well, because we wanted to kind of fit in and feel loved and accepted as well. And because we kind of stood out a little bit and were taller, we were trying to make ourselves smaller in other ways by controlling that sort of food intake.
And that in itself is so detrimental to our self-esteem, and because we've been told as a child that wasn't good enough, then we're striving to better that, and we're striving, and say, like what you were saying about becoming a mum and the body changes, and just aging in general, our body is always changing. The older we get, the more different it looks, and that's not something that's in our control. And when you've got low confidence and you already have maybe a negative relationship with the way that you look, that little monster will just cling on to that, and it will just destroy everything about it, because it wants that power. And also things like having an office job, becoming less active. As children, we were probably all very much more active than we are now, and it's difficult, and no one really teaches you that your body's going to change this much. No one prepares you for that.
Definitely. I think being a mum, touching on that, is that the body changes that you go. I've had 3 children, and I've had 3 cesarean sections as well. So my belly isn't what it used to be. And it's taken me a long time. I'm 36 this year, and it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I just sort of accept that now. And I know that I can't change that. But I spent a long time sort of like not enjoying my body as I used to. I didn't feel comfortable. I don't feel confident. It's been a really big struggle, but I'm kind of getting to I think it's a lot to do with age as well. Sometimes I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to accept that that's the way that it is now, and I've got 3 beautiful boys because of that. So I'm trying to look at it in a different way and change my perspective, and just know that I can't change that, but I actually have 3, beautiful boys because of that, and that's really, amazing. And so it's about changing our perspective and the way we're looking at it as well.
Yeah, and
accepting that sometimes things, we are just the way we are, and be proud of that and be okay with that. Because actually, it's really important that we, like you said before, love ourselves exactly as we are, and enjoy that, and enjoy being us, because it is massively important. I think I was saying this the other day, like I don't want to get to the point where I'm, sort of in my elderly years and look back and think, I really wish I just enjoyed just being me a bit more, and I really wish that I just, ran around with a bikini on and just like enjoyed my life and didn't care. And I want to look back and think, no, I did really enjoy my life to the fullest, and I did do those things. I did get to the point where I could do that and feel comfortable to do that. So some of us, I mean, I'm still kind of in the process of that, but I'm getting there. And I think I'd like to get to the point where I'm able to do that and feel comfortable and not look back and regret not enjoying me for who I am, exactly as I am. I think that's important as well.
Definitely.
To think about.
And it's complicated, I guess, because of all of the stimulation that we get from outer sources and the judgment. We are a very judgmental society these days, and it is difficult, but there are things that you can do to get out of that negative relationship and to heal that negative relationship with food. And one of them is, like what you were saying, engaging in positive self-talk and compassionate self-talk, and just trying. Something that I say to myself all the time is, don't miss out on 95% of your life to weigh 5% less. That literally rings through my head all the time. And also another one is, this might not be healthy, but it's healthy for my soul, and it's filling that craving, and it's the thing that I need right now, whether that's, if say that's chocolate or something like that. It's filling me with happiness, rather than nutrition.
Definitely, I like that.
And also responding to your hunger signals. So if you feel hungry and you want to eat something, just letting yourself do that, and letting yourself just put a full stop after it. Doesn't need to continue. You don't need to have that narrative. And it's hard, and trust me, I know it's hard. And but that your body does need food, and it deserves food as well, and telling yourself that again and again and again and again until you're sick of it.
I think there's another quote that I've seen as well, and it says, so many years of education, yet nobody ever taught us how to love ourselves and why it's so important. And I think that's like one of the main parts of it, this whole thing, isn't it, is about loving ourselves and treating ourselves like somebody that we just even like would be a good start sometimes, because a lot of the time we can be so negative. And I think when we start thinking, would I talk to a friend like this? Would I restrict them from eating something that they enjoy? Like, no way. Like that, I would be the total opposite. And I think we start changing our mindsets and start thinking of like treating ourselves like somebody that we like, and then hopefully eventually that we love. Then that's where we need to start. And then that's where these habits will start breaking and changing, and be able to,
Definitely.
Start changing those habits.
And that's where it starts. That mindset is essentially where that first step. Also, stopping the diet. The diet gives you more problems than it solves. And just in order to have food freedom, and I get it that some people have been told by health professionals that they need to diet, but it doesn't have to be a diet. It doesn't have to be a strict diet. It doesn't have to be something that you have no enjoyment out of, because that is essentially food restriction, and that is so hurtful to your soul and to your body.
What we learn in healthy and balanced lifestyle is basically we just need a healthy and balanced, food diary. We need 3 meals a day with as much vegetables as possible, and just trying to look after our bodies is important. Instead of restricting our food, trying to control it, we need to try and have a healthy, balanced lifestyle, because a lot of the time, like you're saying, I think, is the diets that we're putting on ourselves, the restrictions we're putting on ourselves, are unrealistic to maintain for a long period of time.
Definitely.
And I don't know if you're anything like me, but I used to diet for like months and months and months and months, and it gets to the point where I completely had enough, and then I just eat whatever I liked for like a month, all the weight back on. And it was just so frustrating. And I think if we can just change our lifestyle and the way that we're eating every day into a healthier way of eating, then it's going to be healthy for our bodies and for our minds.
When we're on those diets, we're essentially starving ourselves. So then our metabolism adapts, because that's what it needs to do in order to get us through. And our body is less. So the less you eat, the less you need to eat. And then when you go back to the diet is so unsustainable, when you go back to a normal level of eating, your body assumes that you're overeating. So then it puts weight on. So it's not about breaking your metabolism almost. It's about the balance, and it's about having the food that's good for your body and the food that's good for your soul in equal and
equal quantities,
healthy amounts.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, and this is really difficult, and you have to be quite motivated about this, but writing all of these down and eating one a week, pushing yourself to eat makes you struggle each week or each day or each month, however ready you are, but pushing yourself out of that misery zone and exploring the fact that it's not actually the food that's the scary thing, it's the thought that comes after the food that's the scary thing, and exploring and creating those different pathways for yourself and new experiences with food is essentially what helps you get to food freedom, because you're finding out that actually it's not the foods that's making me hate myself, it's me that's making me hate myself. But if you want any other support or tips, we've got a new pathway called the Food Freedom Healing Project that's run by myself and the other wellbeing coaches, and it's essentially why we get into an unhealthy relationship with food, what obsessive thinking about eating looks like, and looking at little steps enjoyable for ourselves. So if you like to attend that, then just give us a call or an email or anything like that, and we can have a chat with you about that. But also really important to just talk about, like what we said before, about the anxiety workshop, the confidence and self-esteem workshop, the inner critic workshop, the fear of getting well workshop. All of those things are so important and will really help. But yeah, that's, and we really enjoyed a chat with you. I hope you enjoyed as well. And we will see you for the next live. Thank you.
Bye.